أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Feedback here.
Can you put a little bit lower? Like, yeah.
Right here?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit lower. Lower.
I'm next. So testing. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم من همزه ونفخه ونفثه. I begin with the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one and only creator of the world. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi adada khalqihi wa adada zinata arshihi wa baraka fihi. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi subhanallah al-azim. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين اياك نعبد واياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين انعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. So today's subject between Jannah and Nar, a critique of the modern social justice activism movement. It's a very complex subject, and to accurately describe it, it's a subject that has a history to it that, specifically in the context of Muslims living in America, we're talking from the 70s, the immigrant generation of Muslims that came here, the first wave, and then we're talking about the 80s, we're talking, and until 9/11 and the 2020s. So it's there's a lot of history to it, there's a lot of context, and there's a lot of defining terms, right? And what is it that we're really talking about here today when we're critiquing modern social justice activities from the Muslim Ummah here, the Muslim Ummah in America? What are we really critiquing? What is it that we're trying to address? So to begin with, I think the best thing I can do is I can give a scenario of what everybody's seeing, not a scenario, a picture of what everybody's sensing. We live in a world today now, every family senses this, the kids in college, high school, every conference you go to, you see it all around you, advertisements, Nike, Facebook, comic books, comic book movies, bystanders, TV shows, video games, and even, unfortunately, the Fahisha magazines are part of that talk about without being specific. And what that says is that the Muslim woman has become the symbol of diversity and inclusion. The symbol, diversity and inclusion were a term that usually corporations started using to find new and different ways to tackle problems, grow business, increase profit, increase efficiency, different cost-saving techniques, and whatnot. And this term kind of carried out and spilled into the culture and normal everyday lives of people. And what's happened was that if you wanted to show that you were diverse and inclusive, you displayed like a rainbow flag, right? Like outside of your store, the Empire Month, LGBTQ month, whatever it is. You on your product labeling, kind of before the LGBTQ flag, it was the pink ribbon, breast cancer awareness, things like this. Like in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was the pink ribbon, breast cancer awareness, the yellow, the strong, Lance Armstrong bracelets and stuff like this. And that kind of transitioned to with the addition of TV shows and the normalization of homosexuality, you had shows like Will and Grace, and you had Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and you had these disgusting things become normal, and that they were showing America that this is not dangerous, right? So then once people adopted it and said, hey, this doesn't affect my life at all. It's their freedom to do what they choose, and they shouldn't be persecuted, and they shouldn't be discriminated against. The new reality today we see is that the Muslim woman in a hijab is the rainbow flag. You drive down the streets, you pass like a UFC gym, you'll see the guy with the MMA mitts, and then you'll see like some kickboxer girl, and then you'll see like a Muslim woman in like a burkini style thing standing in between them, right? And there's a giant billboard of this right behind my house. You'll see like hijabs and advertisements. You want to Muslim men, you won't see like a Pakistani uncle in a kurta shalwar with a big beard, right? You won't see that, but you'll see this modern caricature, right? And how is this connected to the topic, right? How is this connected to the topic of between Jannah and Nar, a critique of the social justice movements and warriors and activists. So this is being sensed by everybody, right? And I have 3 daughters, and if they see like they see like a hijab in a billboard somewhere, they're like, oh look, and it feels nice, you feel included, you feel wanted, you feel integrated. And you feel like you're not the other anymore. You're not, you're being welcomed. And everybody wants to be welcomed. It's a natural human tendency to be part of something that's just other than you. So that's the reality that we live in. And how did we get to this point? And is that what we want? And is that what Muslim wants from us? These achievements, if that's what you want to call them, are touted by Muslim leadership, right? The nationalist Muslim leadership figures and groups and whatnot. It's like an achievement, like, oh, we have an Olympian, we have this, we have that, we have a champion of this, and she's wearing a job. She's able to do everything that the other people are able to do. And these achievements are touted and politicized by groups, by modern secular liberalism. So before we, so what we'll do is we'll use the whiteboard a little bit here to break the subject down and really get the boring part over, so we just have a clearer sense of what we're talking about. We say social justice, right? I'll just use the abbreviation SJW, right? So this part, justice, what is it really? If we try to do this word, a definition. Okay, children. Okay, I hope that's better. Hopefully, I'm asking you can filter that out. Justice, right? The J in justice, right? So what is justice? Everybody thinks justice, they have their own definition of justice. Everybody's very hardcore principle on their definition of justice. So what really is, right? Justice is a sense. And you've all heard the term, like when a victim is looking for a sense of justice, right? It's a sense. It's a feeling that you get when you've received restitution, retribution, all right? It's a feeling. And that feeling happens when you get restitution, you get revenge, vengeance, avenge, right? Very popular word nowadays. Avenge. So this restitution, though, what is that based on? That is based on the values, beliefs, right? Values, beliefs that you hold. And where do those come from? Those come from your culture, your ideas, and just what you hold to be true, your truths, right? Now, what happens is when in a population, in order for the justice to occur, you need the whole society to agree and have consensus that justice was done, right? There needs to be consensus. There needs to be a consensus that the restitution should lead to a sense of justice. Okay? Now, let's take the word social here. I'm going to change color. Okay, now the social part of this, right? It's automatically a limiting word because you can have economic justice, you can have different types of justice. This word social has immediately limited the term to a fragment of the problems that are plaguing society, right? And when you combine this social justice, right? These two words, when they combine, I'm going to change color again. I like using different colors to keep the train of thought, right? When you combine this SJ part, for that consensus to occur, it has to be a manufactured consent, right? The media has to tell you, oh, this 7-year-old girl who was raped, the rapist was convicted and received 4 months in jail. And the judge was thanked, and the family gives a statement to say, oh, I'm glad to see him behind bars. Now, that's not my sense of justice. My sense of justice, as a Muslim, as someone who believes in the Aqidah of Islam, and the oneness of Allah, who wants to go to Jannah, and who wants to seek refuge in Allah from the fire of hell, my sense of justice is going to come from Quran, from Islam, from the Aqidah. Right? And this justice is a framework of manufactured consent. And the words being repeated on the TV and on the CNN and on Fox News, when they repeat it over and over with montage, it has an effect on the human being. That, oh, okay, the tomahawk's going into Baghdad, we're getting a sense of justice. Right? What are those people that are reading? You have no idea. But the word being repeated, Operation Justice, Operation Freedom Justice, constantly bombarded with this term everywhere you go, in the grocery store, the newspapers, and magazine covers. Like Rasulullah once said that words are just as powerful as sin and magic, right? Words are just as powerful. So all of this constant bombardment. Oh, Kobe died, I should cry. I never watched one game of Kobe Bryant play in his life. Most of the kids today haven't. But when Kobe died, all of a sudden volunteered, right? So, why? Because they were bombarded, repeated, montage, right? So that has an effect. That has an effect, and it builds those cultures, ideas, truths, values, beliefs, and this consensus gets manufactured. And then when you get sentences that you do for criminals, right? You know, some people say, "Oh, I forgave my rapist," or "I forgave my mother's killer," or "I forgave," which they have the right to, who's judging them. But that action will be espoused, and the people who would disagree with that would be stigmatized and ostracized, right? Like, so, like, oh, you don't think that's a great virtue that that person was content with the sentence that their oppressor was given. So now, when we laid out the scenario we did in the beginning of the talk, that this achievement by social justice warriors, and they've achieved this acceptance and integration of Muslims into the society. Well, what paradigm is it following? What paradigm is it following? It's following the paradigm of the nafs. Replace the Quran with your own nafs. Right? When you replace the Quran with your own nafs, and you make your heart partners with Allah, and you say, these are my values, and I have the right to choose my values, and I have the right to choose my sense of justice. So, unfortunately, that's what happens, and the hijab is replaced. I don't want to say the hijab, but this caricature that the media creates of this Muslim woman in a hijab, and more often than not, it's against the values of tabarruj, which is how hijab is defined from the Sharia classical fiqh of what a hijab is, and it hides the ornaments. Instead, they pervert that definition of hijab, right? And then you have these Muslim media syndicates that push this image onto our daughters and onto our nieces and sisters and mothers, right? That oh, you know, she's a strong, liberated Muslim muhajiba that is, you know, wearing this Estee Lauder plum lipstick, and she's got a Gucci hijab, and she's on the magazine cover saying, "Oh, look, I'm just like you. I can be just as seductive as the scantily clad Sports Illustrated bikini woman. I can be just as seductive." And subhanAllah, when you look at that paradigm, you see in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never gives a illa for a hijab, right? So this fahisha, it exists, and it's not just about the women; it's about the men too. You see our young men increasingly wearing these tight pants and these Gatsby style fashions, you know, with these blue suits and brown pants and brown shoes everywhere, and gray suits, and their aura is, the mold of their aura is showing, and you know, the weddings and everything. It's everywhere, right? Nobody needs to hide that. It's everywhere, and it's a shame, right? And what is all of this the product of? The product of switching our sense of justice, and that doesn't have to be extreme things like the George Floyd murder or you know, a lynching or something. It could be just as simple as a conversation between a husband and wife about how they should dress, right? That are you respecting my ghira when we go out? And she says, well, you know, I'm dressed fully in makeup, but you know, I got a hijab on, and he's like, oh, okay, that's good enough. So he's perverted the Sharia and what the Sharia deems the sense of justice should be, right? And they perverted to their own delusional sense of justice, to whatever they feel is good enough and normal. So she's okay with him wearing those tight pants that are, that are showing all those seam lines and everything, and he's okay with the other thing, right? So they've been just to each other, and it's nobody else's business. Stay out of it, right? So that's on the individual. That's on the individual scale, right? And then on the social scale, on the larger social scale, you have these social justice warriors that go out, and what they do is they affirm victories, okay? And this really hurts. It really hurts Muslim men and women. Should hurt everybody, because when we came into the early 2000s, the hijabi was the most vulnerable person on earth in America, right? She was like, she faced three unique challenges that nobody else faced. She had, being a Muslim of a different skin color, she had the manufactured Islamophobic persecution, placed on her, and then she had the. In addition to it, she was an easy target. She was easily identified with wearing a hijab. So they took the most vulnerable thing that we have, that the most vulnerable citizen in the society, and they transformed that into what divorced us from our aqidah, right? By purporting this image of this vulnerable Muslim hijabi, what they did was they divorced us from our aqidah, the Muslim identity. They divorced the Muslim identity from the aqidah of Islam. They married the Muslim identity to whatever you feel is good, and you're accepted and you're welcome, and democracy is great, and look at what we can do if we all work together, okay? Now, who affirmed that were these paradigm, narrative, social justice activists who completely have no basis in the Sharia for what they're supporting, right? There are certain figures and whatnot, and they'll go out and issue publications and think tanks, and they'll support certain magazines and do interviews in these magazines to prop them up, right? And they have no basis from the Sharia for what they're doing, right? So they'll never get the hands of their scholars dirty, right? And they serve as an intermediary link. They'll serve on a panel at a conference with scholar X, and then you'll have the social justice activist, and then you'll have all the media, you'll have all the media and content and all the brainwashing that they do, in a tiered separation from each other. And they're associated in layers. So nobody can ever say, oh, this scholar is horrible because he supports XYZ, right? Well, can you please find that on record? He's never on record saying that, there's no proof. But what happens is they form associations. Also help form an association with the lower tier, the social justice activists, who won't say anything haram, but the social justice activists will go out and do all these activities with these LGBTQ groups and atheist groups and whatnot, right? And then and these groups are obviously, they're claiming to be heroes and but their values are not, and their ideas and beliefs and their actions are what lead to the wrath of Allah. They are a path to Jahannam. They are not a path to Jannah, right? But the social justice warrior sits in the middle and is an emissary between the credibility of scholars and the integration of the Muslims into the secular modern lifestyle. They play this role of matchmaker, right? So they'll go out and they'll do these activities and they'll affirm these achievements, right? And then they'll go out and they'll serve on a panel on an interview or at a conference or whatever with scholar XYZ. And so now just the presence of that, of the two together, has legitimized all the activities that are being done in the name of Islam, and they're making it look like they're doing some kind of hasanah, right? And so this is like the narrative that they build, and but the media, how it props up these caricatures of this hijabi, right? They tout that as a victory, and you feel integrated, you feel good, you feel accepted, welcome, right? You can go to work without being judged, and Stacy will share her tuna casserole with you, and life is great. Okay, well that's great, but you lost your aqidah in that process. You lost your aqidah in that process. Because your perspective to begin with isn't what pleases Allah and is going to take me to Jannah. And if I really cared about these people that I live with, and I do, I'm team human, right? I'm not team shaitan, I'm team human, and I want humans to go to heaven, right? I want everybody to go to heaven. I want the kuffar to accept Islam. I want them to submit to the oneness of Allah. I want to invite them to the submission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And that's the real care, right? That's the prophetic mode of operating. Instead, you masquerade saying that, oh, I'm fighting for this transvestite's rights, and I'm getting hasanat. And why am I doing that? Because we're in the same boat together. We're persecuted and discriminated as a minority. They're persecuted and discriminated as a minority. We need to work together. And that was the discussion in the early 2000s. All right, so if we break this down by timeline, in the 70s, you had immigration, and the Afghan war was used to radicalize Muslims to go fight against this expansion of communism. And then in the 80s, you had a wave of immigration into America, right? And then in the 90s, you had the expansion of masjids everywhere. We had a very rapid expansion of the Muslim presence in America. And then, late 90s, you had the USS Cole attack, and early 2000, you had 9/11. You had these terrorist attacks that stemmed from all this radicalization. And now you need to curtail it. You need to bring everything down. You need a stable economy. You can't have all sorts of discrimination and hate going on. You can't have boycotts. You can't have this dysfunction and chaos. It's bad for the markets. It's bad for life in general, right? So what do we do? What do we do? The powers that be, the think tanks, the philosophers, the ideologues, they get together and they say, well, we need to integrate, right? We need to integrate this minority that has a separate aqidah from ours into our aqidah of modern secular liberalism, right? And so after 9/11, that was the plan. We had 2 tough years of attacks and whatnot, and the persecution of hijabis was very often, it started getting news attention. And the masjids they resorted to supporting the political party that would help them secure rights and prosecute hate crimes and whatnot. And they chose, they abandoned the Republican Party and they put their weight behind the Democratic Party. When they did that, they made a deal that it didn't have to be a written, it's not a written deal, it's not a spoken deal, it's that you're living in the same house together now. And if the Democratic Party is going to fight for your rights, and the liberals are going to fight for your acceptance into society, you're going to carry the causes that they also champion, right? Now, what happens? They have to justify this. They have to justify to the Muslims that, oh, why are you working with a bunch of atheists? Why are you working with a bunch of homosexuals? Why are you working with a bunch of, fahishin, fahisha, people who indulge in their fahisha. And the argument was survival. Oh, well, we need to do this for survival. And in the mid-2000s, that was their argument, right? But in 2010 and kind of post-2010, this shifted. There was no longer that, oh, this is an issue of survival. This is an issue of you being a good Muslim. You're fighting so that persecuted people are not discriminated, and Islam hates discrimination, so you are getting hasanat for fighting for the rights of oppressed minorities. Sounds great. Now, things get played out, people get desensitized. The rainbow flag becomes desensitized, right? You need a new symbol of diversion and inclusivity. Take the Muslim hijabi. She is the new symbol of diversity and inclusion. So there's a heavy shift in 2010 to start pushing Muslim women to become the symbol of diversion and inclusivity, and a heavy push to using that mechanism, that win, that victory, letting the social justice warriors use that as a brownie point to further the integration and the abandonment of the Islamic Aqidah and the adoption of modern secular liberal values, right? And you come to a point now where the Muslim identity is divorced from the Aqidah of Islam. So if I go to a wedding and I say, this is haram, you can, to be honest, you can't even say Jahannam in some masjids, in the khutbahs. You can't even say this will take you to hellfire. It will take you to the anger and the wrath, the lanat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot say that. It's PTSD for the ears. My kids are listening. Oh my God, they're 4 years old. You want to tell them that a human is going to burn and their flesh is going to burn? Allah says it. Allah says they'll boil from their insides. And they'll eat the zakum. And they'll eat it like thirsty camels. Oh, you can't say that in khutbah anymore. What happened? Muslim identity is divorced from the aqidah of Islam. Jannah and Nar. You are a social justice warrior. You are a great human. Jannah. You cannot tell that kafir that he's going to go to hellfire. You cannot say that anymore. You're a bigot. You carry hate in you. No, I didn't. I want Jannah for him. I don't hate him. Right? So what's going on here? We're losing our aqidah. If you took the other side and they killed you, or suppose you didn't do anything and you let the persecution of the Muslims grow. Hypothetical scenario, it got so bad, and it's bad in many parts of the world like India. They kill you. Okay, you go to Jannah, they kill you. Life is short. Fine, I go to Jannah, alhamdulillah. You integrate and you get accepted at the cost of your aqidah. Now you're in trouble on the day of judgment. So what deal did you make? And that's where the social justice concept was divorced from Jannah and Nar. If they really cared about those people, and you know who you are when I address you, if you really cared about, I can be honest with the kuffar around me. I live in America too. I work. I tell them I care about you. I love you. I want you to go to Jannah. Accept Allah as one Allah. Submit to Allah. So believe in the Quran. I understand you got problems. You're not going to be clean overnight. You work at it. I'm not judging you. I want Jannah for you. I'm warning you, there is a hellfire and a wrath and a punishment. Pain is real. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it. pain is a reality. Hellfire is a reality. I don't want that for you. They divorced enjoining the good and forbidding the evil from Jannah and Nar. That's what happened. I'd like to see them get up on the Capitol Hill and say, I want Islam for you, America. I want Jannah for you. I want you to abandon your belief in freedom. I want you to accept the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want you to magnify Him. I want you to engage in the hamd and the subh, the tahmeed, the tahleel, the tahmeed and the takbir. And I want you to organize your life's affairs according to the Quran and the Sunnah to seek the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. What happened to that? Who played matchmaker in divorcing us from them? That is the dawah that Muslims in America need to adopt. As a unit, we need to go out, just like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went out in Makkah. He called the Makkans. They didn't believe in an akhirah, so they would do what they wanted. Some of it, they had different values. They had a different sense of justice. Like when they would kill their daughters, they knew it was wrong. If you read the seerah books, they knew it was wrong. They would do it in secret. They would go out at night, and the woman of the house would hide the secret. And the maid would leak it to the other, Abu Lahab's maid would leak it to Abu Jahl's maid. And then Abu Jahl would sit there and laugh like, oh, that evil dirty guy, he buried his daughter alive. They did frown down upon him, but they didn't believe in the akhirah. So they said, okay, fine, well, actions are not accountable. His status would get lowered in that Qurayshi society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He addresses that, it's establishing that you don't think you're going to pay for it in the hellfire, because they had no concept of hellfire. So what's happened is that, no, okay, the ayah here is misused and said, Rasulullah was, the primary goal of the ayah was to put the mirror on the society. No, the primary thing was to teach them that there's going to be accountability, and they knew what they were doing was wrong. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not have said it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have said, hey, this is evil and something loathful and something resentful and disgusting. They knew that. They just said, okay, there's no accountability. Nobody touches them. So they divorced the akhirah when using these type of ayat to support their social justice work. So if they really care about that transgressor, right, the person engaging in that zina or that whatever it is, they would say, get your head on the ground, worship Allah, seek refuge in Allah from those evils. Clean your heart, clean your body, clean your mind, seek afiyah in your sexual health, seek afiyah in your economic well-being, right? Afiyah. By submission. That is the dawah, the invitation to Jannah, the warning of hellfire. Within that paradigm, your dawah occurs. And now there's been a redshift to this other deen, this other way of life. So don't be fake, don't be a code switcher Muslim. Okay? Don't be a code switcher. Because I care about you too, and I care about myself too, and I hope you care about me too. Give people dawah the way it is. Invite them to Jannah. Tell them Allah hates this action of zina. Allah loves this action to do this in the proper nikah. Right? What's my time? How? So the second aspect of this that I'll get into, you know, I hope I convey a sense of this sheet. And the last 5 minutes, what I'll do is I will break it down a little farther. I'm going to flip right over here. And this is something that we should all recognize. Okay, we have the Ummah here, right? In USA. And this Ummah wants to stay connected to its Islamic aqidah, right? Now, the integration into American society involves the breaking of that, right? And then we just spent the past 40 minutes talking about that. Now, just a quick visual grasp of in the early 2000s, what it was you had the carrot and the stick, right? Everybody who studied political science knows about the carrot and the stick, right? On one side, you had the carrot, and this was like, oh, you know, we'll give you subsidies, we'll give you protected rights as a minority, we'll call you a minority, we'll create a minority, right? It's a manufactured identity of being a minority, okay? And we will give you magazines, and we'll give you licenses to operate and create charities and all that stuff we love to do, right? And we'll put those on the media and tout your efforts, and then you'll be loved, right? That's the carrot. Now the stick was, okay, you got Fox News, you have Kiefer Sutherland playing that Agent Jack or something who was going around finding out everybody's a terrorist and killing them and breaking down their doors, and you have the fear mongering, right? So that was the old Fox News, and you had the media, that was the Islamophobia, right? You had the Islamophobia. That was the stick, right? Okay, well, this was the 2010 framework that a lot of people identify with and are very familiar with. Well, what happened was, this has become a little bit multi-pronged now. It's a little smarter. The carrot and the stick have become its own right? The carrot and the stick are one side of the attack. The other side of the attack right? So I want you to visualize this as a battlefield, right? An ideological plane, an ideological battlefield, right? So you have this ummah here in the middle, okay? It wants to stay connected to its Islamic aqidah, and all of these external forces are pushing it into integration. Right? It's being pushed into integration from these directions, right? Now, if it tries to, here you have deviant sects. You had the Qadiani winning the Oscar, right? You have deviant sects who take the place of the representation of the Muslims if the Muslims don't play nice and get on the platform that the media wants them to, right? On this side, unfortunately, you have national integration organizations, the SJW, right? You have the SJW, pushing towards the integration. You have the carrot and the stick from the kuffar pushing in this direction. Now, if you don't, what they do is they just prop up the deviant sects, the guy who played a transvestite and won the Oscar, as, oh, this is the representation of the Muslim community. Oh, so we don't want that. We don't want to be represented by them. And we have this pressure on us from here. We have this affirmation. It's okay. It's hasanah. It's enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. Go ahead and integrate. So now you get pushed into this. It's a multi-pronged pincer. So like if you know anything about like ancient battles and you know the term a pincer attack, right? Where the two flanks of an army, when one army is able to flank the other army from both sides, it's called a classic pincer attack, right? So this is what I call the ideological pincer, right? And now that integrated feeling, it doesn't feel so good anymore. You're conflicted, you know what's wrong, you know what you're doing is wrong, right? Even whether it's at an individual level, it's at whatever level, you know that hijabi and the tight clothes, pretending to be a world champion, something on the billboard is wrong. You know you don't want that in your family. But now, you have this accepted state. Now you're in a conflicted status. So what afia are you getting? You come to the masjid, you emptying your wallet with donations, seeking forgiveness from Allah, coming to Tarawih, fasting. But at what cost? And without that, there's nothing. So that afia that you chase in your life, and Rasulullah said that afia is the greatest thing someone can have. Allah says, the dhikr is the greatest thing, right? So the dhikr and afia. The dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the afia and contentment in the heart. The two greatest things. Gone. 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 Oh, zikr, I do zikr. I got a tasbih. How long can you keep it up for before that guilt comes in there and says, hey, stop it. You know what you're doing is wrong. You want to be embarrassed in front of Allah. That guilty conscience in the heart. Now you've become a code switching soul. So don't be a code switching soul. Don't be a code switching soul. Invite everybody to Jannah. Invite to Dawah. Invite one of the hellfire. That is the Islamic paradigm. That is the path to Allah. You seek refuge in Allah. اللهم اجرني من النار اللهم اجرني من النار اللهم اجرني من النار اللهم اني اسالك الجنه ورحمه في الدنيا والاخره. This is the time of wahid. Not to be confused with cowardice. Many people are ready to die for Islam, but we come back to this paradigm. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته